What do we mean when we talk about the in-between, the nexus of our lives, of our reality? So often when we look back at our lives, we look at the milestone moments, these plateaus and footprints that we leave behind as markers of our life's journey. That only makes up about 20 to 30%. The rest is defined and connected by the in-between. Everything that takes place in between. And this is where the art of the spiritual warrior comes in. We can develop the tools and the means to identify all these different elements in our world and become the alchemists of our lives, peering through the nexus and the prism of our multiverse and drawing forth all that we are into the present now. Hello. Good day. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining me again on another wonderful Friday. I'm so happy to be here, talk about some stuff. What are we going to talk about today? I'm going to be honest. I had no idea. I didn't know what I was coming in with today. So you know what? We're just going to let universe decide. We're going to go with the flow, and something's going to pop up. And sure enough, it did about 20 minutes before the show today. So when I get into that state, when I get into that flow state of something will just show up. It always does. It's just a matter of how receptive, how open are we to interpreting everything that's given to us, because we have everything accessible to us. How open are we to interpreting it and then showing our awareness to what we already have rather than what we don't have or what we're aspiring to achieve. Show it to the immediate now, and it expands, it multiplies its power. So what I ended up doing with that today, I guess we'll do a little check-in first before we do that. Hi, lovely to see you. I got up today and I was up early, and I've been having weird sleeps lately, and I'm sure I know a lot of people have, but what I personally mean by weird sleeps is not like the dream states or, you know, the visitations or that type of, that's my normal weird, if that makes sense. That's my normal kind of stuff. For me, a weird sleep state is just getting off of a normal kind of pattern. And for me, the closest that I get to a normalcy with sleeping is kind of with the sun. I don't know when that exactly started, but I've noticed it over the last few years, especially in particular. You know, in summertime, I'm up 5:30, latest 6:30 on average, because that's when the sun's up. And as soon as it starts kind of rising, I'm already doing my toss and turn, feeling like getting out of bed thing. And it extends a little more in winter. You know, I'll sleep in maybe a little 8:30-ish, something like that. I'll be asleep in. But it's really kind of a natural cycle that I find. And then on average, I'm sleeping, I don't know, 6 to 7.5 hours. I don't usually do the 8-hour mark or beyond that. And there's some teachings that David Piltz and I go over in boot camps about the chemical process that happens every 90 minutes to 3-hour cycles. So every hour and a half to 3-hour cycles, there's a dump and a cleansing of a chemical kind of goop that goes all over our brain. And if you ever notice that when you take those naps, and it's usually right around just before, like if you nap for, let's say 75 to 85 minutes, something like that, you wake up and you've got this kind of hazy, I don't know what's going on thing. Well, it's because the chemical is literally coating your brain, and the receptors aren't picking up their normal function. So they've got to push, and you got to wait to kind of clear that oil or something. I'm not even sure exactly what the substance is. I would have to refer to David on a little more chemical defining of what it is, but there is a chemical excretion that happens, and it goes over the brain in those cycles. So my body kind of goes in that. And then this morning, I should say over the last couple of weeks, that's been getting thrown off. I've been napping, and I love naps. Don't get me wrong. I love naps so much. I love naps. But if they happen too much, it throws my pattern off. I can't do them like as a routine. I can't have it as a part of my day. It just has to be something that happens on random every once in a while. As soon as it starts to become like a routine thing, my body gets too exhausted at that specific kind of average time throughout the day, and it throws off my sleep at night. I don't get to that REM state at night. I toss and turn, and that's just it makes me a cranky camper, and I'm not a big fan of being a cranky camper. So it's been interesting on the sleep stays. I've been able to kind of pick that up over this last week and get back into a better regimen with it. And, and it doesn't help that I'm napping at like the end of the workday at like, 4 or 5 p.m. It's so late. Why are you napping that late? Anyways, moving past that, I woke up today and I had some stuff scheduled. So I went to go get my car finally looked at. I've been waiting to do that and get it highway ready so I can make my way out to Calgary. I got up, I did that. I had a few stops to make on the way. And then when I get there, we're looking at this, looking at that. And there was nothing major with the car at all. It was actually in really good shape. But there was just like little pieces of awareness to stuff that I didn't know about. So like, for example, when we went to go check the transmission fluid, the cap is on the transmission fluid container, but then we pull the cap off and there's no dipstick attached to it. So we're like, what the hell, did it fall in the tank? So we're fishing around and it's not in there. So I don't know what happened to it, but the guy who sold it to me didn't sell it to me with a dipstick for my transmission fluid tank. And there's just a few other things, like my tires were way lower than I thought they were on air, and I wanted to know if it was my gauge that was off, or just a few of these things. And then we're cleaning everything up, car's all good, I go to start it, and there's this quick snap as soon as I go to turn the key, and I go, did I just break my key off in the ignition? And thankfully I looked down and it was just the plastic connector for the fob that broke at the base of the key. The key was still intact. So I said, thank goodness I was able to squish it together, get it started, and take it to a keysmith, I should say, and go get a new key cut. So I got all that taken care of today. And it was funny because as it was happening, I was going with the flow of it, right? The snap went and my head could have gone into immediate major panic mode, but I just kind of went, no, it's okay. I don't know why it's okay, but it's okay. Just look down. And sure enough, I looked down and the key was still intact, right? So, and then I've been meaning to get a new fob anyways. So just a few things kind of pushed the momentum of other things that were waiting because I just went with the flow. And I didn't have to force anything. There wasn't this excess stress. There wasn't any of that stuff. And then sure enough, I'm coming back up the mountain. I go, well, what am I going to talk about today? I'm tired. I wanted to nap. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to nap. That was the instinct. And I said, no napping. There's stuff that you got to do when you get back. It's not been a full day yet. Don't even think about it. So I said, cool, get cleaned up, do your shower, do your shave, do your routine, and you'll figure it out. So one of the things that I do, and this is where it leads into today's topic, some of today's topic. One of the things that I do when I'm working, I work from home. So I put on something in the background, and it's usually TV because it's like there's a pace to the way that television runs, and that pace kind of keeps my mind in a certain momentum while I'm working, to have that energy, that sound, that frequency flowing in the background. It doesn't work as well with movies, for example, because movies have a much more extended and elongated feel about them, pacing to them, right? So there's just something about shows and the specific shows, right? Like there's for example, if I'm watching Chef Ramsay, if I've got like Hell's Kitchen on in the background, that's because there's some priority work stuff and I need that fire behind me to just say, get it done, get it done, get it done. And that pace that Chef Ramsay kicks out helps me with that frequency, get into that flow state. When I'm just kind of relaxing and it's a normal kind of day, I will usually put on something nostalgic. And this is where I found we're going to kind of kick into the topic today. The nostalgic for me, it soothes me, it gets me at peace, it allows my inner child to rise in vibration to the surface. What happens when we tap into that inner child frequency, especially when we do the proper work to heal our inner child and are constantly doing that addressment and that integration process with our inner child, when it surfaces like that in a moment of, passionate nostalgia, it brings forth all of that incredible, pure, creative energy of the child. And for me, the most recent one, so it varies all the time. It varies what I'm watching nostalgia. There's a lot of Power Rangers and there's a lot of Ninja Turtles. That's like a given on an off and on, whether I'm watching it when I'm working or I have it, when I'm falling asleep. It's there. One of the two of them is there. But it'll vary. Sometimes I'll be in a Marvel superhero mood. Sometimes I'll be in a DC superhero mood. Sometimes I'll be in a Star Wars mood. Sometimes I'll be in a Transformers mood. So it all varies, but I let my inner child kind of dictate that and what my energy is calling for. And recently I was on Tubi, the streaming app Tubi, and Magic School Bus popped up. I was sitting there and I'd something finished and I'm working away. And I just hear the TV switch over to the next recommended show. And I just hear the beep, beep, seatbelts, everyone. Please let this be a normal field trip with the Frizz? No way. And I stopped and I looked up and I said, there's no way I'm watching this show. Oh my God, I'm watching this show. And the theme song kicked on and I'm just sitting there jamming to that theme song because I loved that show when I was a kid. And I just let it run, and the nostalgia kicked up and all this high vibrational energy, big smile across my face, and I'm giggling to myself about how kind of silly it is, but at the same time I'm enjoying having it in the background, and it just allows what I'm doing, all of that energy to flow into it, right? And it's such an incredible transducer and capacitor for allowing this energy to circulate into whatever we're doing and become literally a part of all aspects of our lives. We don't have to separate how we're engaging with this stuff. And for me, that's like the inner child is one of the most powerful tools at our disposal. And I say this because I'm still learning the depths of it. I chew on it almost every day. I play with my inner child all the time. We've established an incredible rapport and relationship. And what I found about nostalgia, because there's a lot of people that I've met that have this big draw to nostalgia, is it takes us back to that frequency of that inner child resonance. A lot of people, they say it's just something I liked from my childhood, and I hear it and it makes me feel good. And yes, there's just that basic kind of surface level to it. But when we take that and we dive into the fact that that's all inner child frequency, that's all that inner child energy, and we allow that energy to surface, we tap into what the essence of what that pure child energy is. And for anyone that dives into the conspiracy theories on stuff, there's a reason why kids are looked at and trafficked across the world and have been held in high regard in a lot of different cultures throughout all of time, really, where the energy possessed of a child is so purely tapped in to its source frequency because it hasn't had any physical filters, and I don't want to say conditioning. I don't want to say this and that because I'm changing my perspective on things. When we're born and when we come through into this physical realm, there are filters that come through that give us an image or give us a state of perception on what we're living, what we're experiencing. And these filters come in all different forms. I did call them modes of conditioning, and we can still call them modes and methods of conditioning. But when I look at it from the perspective of filter, I can take accountability for this stuff, even if somebody else is projecting it based off of whatever experience they're going through, because that's all that it is. That's all that it is. It's their version of an experience in this realm. So for me to be able to remove my identification with that by saying I was conditioned by what somebody else did, and rather just look at it as say, oh, a shared experience placed a filter of energy, a filter of perception within the experience. Well, I can do something about that filter. I can either continue to look through the filter, or I can find a way to look around the filter. But it's then on me. I'm not putting any of the power or accountability on anybody else to say you have power over me in this condition. No. So, anyways, point being, when we're born, there are filters, and these filters, as we grow up, I don't want to say dim. Yeah, okay, dim. The filters dim that shining light that is so abundant in that child, that glow that we see children with when they're smiling, when they're playing, when they're laughing, that purity in them, that glow. Every time a new filter gets placed in their world, dims that light as they walk through that filter of life. When we're able to tap into and integrate that inner child energy, and nostalgia is a great way of doing this because it shows us where our links are and the access doors basically to open up to say, hey, here's a song, here's a show, here's a frequency that will open that gateway to your inner child resonance. When we're able to tap into that and let it surface, we are able to bring that purity of light back through the filters into the now, into this state of present now. And we're able to, again, taking the accountability of saying those were just filters. I don't need them. I don't want those filters dimming my light. Then we're able to let that light shine. We're able to bring that cosmic abundance through into the immediate now. So for me, again, the way that I do this, the gateway, the doorway, is through nostalgia, finding these things in my world that are so linked to my inner child that it makes me bubble up and burst from the inside out. I can't help but smile when I engage in these things. When I hear the Ninja Turtles or the Power Rangers theme, if you think I don't jam out like a motherfucker to that, you're crazy. Even the Magic School Bus, I'm sitting there going like, oh, like I'm a grown ass man in a club listening to some dude on stage that's rapping or something, and I'm jamming out to these songs because I love it. It lets my inner child sing. I don't forget about the fact that I am who I am now, but it brings that energy into the now. You know, it's a beautiful process. So I mean, that's kind of the topic of the day. I'm going to quickly check in on comments and see what we've got going on. If there's, hello, Cindy. Hello. Pleasure to see you. Whoever, if there's anyone who has some inner child stuff you want to talk about, you got some questions, please. The floor is open. Beyond this topic, I think what I would like to be able to do today is, I think we're going to do that. I'm getting ready to publish my first book that I wrote about 8 years ago now-ish. Yes, about 8 years ago. And it was, again, because it was 8 years ago, I was at a very different place in my journey. But as I took to editing and proofreading the book and getting ready to publish it, I didn't want to change what I had written because it was so valuable and so validated with where I was at that point in time that I wanted to be able to make it basically the introduction of a series of books to show my journey and how I grow through each of the different stages, each of the different series of books that I'm going to be able to distribute and that everyone can read and engage with. Because when I read it over, and even when I had some other people proofread it too, there's a resonance to it that answers a lot of questions that we get caught up in. And I would be a fool to think that just because I've grown so much since then and I'm in such a different place that I should rewrite any of those words. I should just take what I have now and write a new book. Leave that the way that it is, because it holds so much power and so much resonance into it. So I think we're going to read a little bit of that. I think I'm going to give everybody just a little teaser. I think I'm going to do the foreword and potentially the first chapter. And yeah, maybe just kind of give everyone a little taste of what I've wrote, and hopefully I can start getting it out and distributed relatively soon. It's, like I said, it is a really good introduction. It's a big mixture of teachings that I was just getting my teaching chops about me at the time. So I was learning how to express the teachings that I was receiving and practicing all at the same time. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of personal stories, a lot of vulnerability as I get in there. There's even some of my first, I think I've told some of my interdimensional engagements and my interstellar journeys in past shows, but I wrote some stories in there as well that are pretty wild, definitely pretty Riley. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know. I don't want to tease you too much, because it's you read it. Just read it when it comes out. So we'll probably do a chapter on that today as well. Like I said, I'm just going to quickly pull up comments here. I'm not seeing any, but I'm not going to lie. For anyone who's commenting on Rumble right now, when I run this by myself, I don't know how to open the Rumble comments. So I apologize if I'm missing you guys on Rumble, but when we go back and we check the comments, we will reply to you then afterwards. So thank you for commenting if you are. I'm sorry I can't get to you. I will eventually. Okay, I think that's it for comments right now. All right, so I guess we're going to start reading. I got to pull it up on PDF. Okay, now hopefully, yes, I think it still runs. Camera should still run. All the stuff still runs when I pull up a PDF. Okay. So the foreword, we're going to start with the foreword, and we will just going to quickly do a review, see how long chapter 1 is. It's a bit. It's not that long. I didn't make this a huge book. Some of the, I think 1 or 2 of the chapters is only like a page and a half or 2 pages in the format on the computer right now. So I'm going to make it smaller pages, hard copy, but I didn't want this to be a thick, really thick book. I wanted this to be an activating read. I wanted this to be a catalyst as you're reading into it. When you finish up that chapter, I didn't want it to be this huge meal that you had to chew on. I wanted it to be planting seeds, basically, or activating and nurturing seeds that have already been planted in your world, right? Okay. So, title of the book, The Me in Metaphysics, right? I love it. I love that. I can't remember when I came up with it, but I love that one. I thought it would be different than this. I had this scenario play out in my head where, along with the awakening and enlightenment, would come this sense of it's easier. Everything that should be a part of my life would begin to fall together in place, no questions asked. Acknowledge the lessons, listen clearly to the guidance, follow suit, and all would be as it was meant to. Meaning to me that all the things withheld from me for the sake of progression and acceleration, everything that for the entirety of my life seemed to be so far from reality for me that I just categorized it as unattainable fantasy, with one thing in particular always placing near the top: being happy. All this and more would not only begin to appear in full power and form, but I would know where, when, and how everything was meant to fit in. No doubt, no fear, no weakness, no pain. just the way it's supposed to be. That's what I used to think. Luckily, my failures have taught me better. I understand the concept of balance more each day as I shift from a physical control state into utilizing my inner strength, where our true power resides. And with this understanding comes release of pain, of anger, frustration and depression, distrust and selfishness, anything and everything that has accumulated in a non purposeful manner and has cluttered our mind, body, and soul to the point of where we feel like we're going to explode. It's this accumulation that's hindering the growth. In order to accept the whole of the presence of creation and our true self, we must open up and release the things that are no longer needed. Break down and empty yourself. Trust me, you need the space. The unwillingness to let go of the things that we feel define us as people is another roadblock. To say that a specific experience defines you as you are is to also say that you were not you before that event. And who are you now? Have you lived beyond the defining event, or are you choosing to stay there? The journey stops if we don't go beyond the first step, a story frozen in its expression. We have been conditioned to define our expressions of achievement and self-worth through standards of superficial materialism and judgment. How many people want to have sex with you? How much money do you have? What do you have to show for yourself? I didn't realize this was a presentation for an audience. I was under the impression that your self-worth is based on how you see yourself and the value that we place on the person that we choose to be. But we are so busy trying to impress one another that we forget to set standards for ourselves. So now many of us run into the issue of falling back on that same superficial standard to measure inward, while also forgetting how hard it is to be honest with oneself when we're critiquing ourselves. Then comes the trap of letting others define our value and our worth based on how we would want them to see us, rather than how we would want to see ourselves. The whole time, trusting that other people will be more honest with you than you would be with yourself. Not even realizing that 99% of people are going through their own version of this process. They're trying to figure things out, just like you. So if we're all looking through that same lens, why do we subconsciously place more trust in the opinion that's formed outside of the inner workings as the rough patches are being smoothed out, rather than the opinion of the person inside running the shop? It's like judging the quality of glass while it's still sand. But that's how we've been conditioned, programmed. This is a method used the world over to keep us distracted from looking inward and freeing ourselves from what we've created by remembering that we are the creators and not the audience of our creations. This river runs deep, deeper than most people are willing to dive. So before we continue on this voyage, I'd like to give you some insight to whom this person is that you're speaking with. Because this isn't a novel. This isn't the next Stephen King classic. This is the world and the universe as I am discovering it, hoping to help you with your own journey of discovery. Because this shit ain't easy. Chapter When we're young, we develop. Actually, hold on. Sorry, I'm going to quickly jump over, see if there's any comments. No, no comments. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I guess we're just going to keep going. Sounds great. All right. Question one, or question one, chapter one, questions. When we are young, we develop our sense of morality, right and wrong, justice and vengeance, order and chaos. Through the guidance of parents, peers, jobs, education systems, and the distribution of information, which determines what we learn and how we learn it, we grow into proactive or inactive members of society. So, my question here is, how many of us feel like we're still, well, us? Do you feel like you? I mean, the real you. Does anybody remember how you used to feel about things when you were a kid? Do you remember how it would feel when something just really wasn't right? And I'm not talking about when you would get caught lying or you didn't get your way, so you threw a tantrum. I mean, that feeling you would get when your friend got bullied or some kids pointlessly hurting an animal, people going out of their way to intentionally cause negativity. Or, I mean, even playing make believe, using our imagination to create entire new worlds when we went somewhere that we hadn't been before. And this goes so far beyond what we've been simplifying as growing up, acting our age, or being an adult. I can remember a lot of those feelings, the purity of the emotions, and they weren't all just a part of what's seen as children's naivete, but instead quite literally points of guidance, basically the runway lights for us to follow, to help make our landing smoother and show us who it is that we really want to be. Now, how many of us have had one hell of a bumpy ride? How many of us feel like we've even stayed on course? As topsy-turvy as that may seem, the fact that most of us turned away from the basic building blocks that we were given and have been forced to live that much more of a difficult life was intricate in getting the development that is necessary for what is happening right now. We need to see how things fail in order to rebuild successfully. This is a pivotal part of the fundamental understanding of balance in our world. I remember I used to get so relentlessly upset when I was faced with a moral confrontation. It would hit me at my core. I wouldn't only be upset at the result of the action or the event, but the basic presence of the event being put into motion in the first place. One summer, I couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 at the time. My family and I were visiting our cabin at Emerald Lake in Saskatchewan. And that's a place where I keep many of my treasured memories. It was a bright, sunny day, as it should have been up at the lake. Still early in the day, maybe between 10 or 11 in the morning. And I was off on an adventure. I loved adventuring and exploring, interacting with people, places, animals. And at that age, oh, I had a charming comfort with just being very outgoing and engaging. On that particular day, I was wandering down the dirt road in front of our cabin, heading toward the campground area near the boat launch. And on my way, I noticed 3 younger boys further down the trail. And anyone who knew me at that age knew I could not resist meeting somebody new. So I see these kids, and off I went to go make some new friends, unknowingly headed towards a situation that would stay with me forever. And help reestablish a part of my true self. As I approach, I see the lead boy wildly thrashing a garter snake by the end of its tail and pummeling its head into the blunt, rigid bark of the trunk of a large tree, while the two other boys stood and watched the spectacle take place. Instantly, the only thing driving me was to get him to stop. I had to. There was no thought process, no other instinct. I walked right up to them and was almost in tears as I tried reasoning with them. They taunted me and laughed, in their minds seeing weakness, soon to find in a spectacular truth. It was a yet untapped well of power and strength. Strength that I would then use in assuming control of the morally wrong situation and implementing necessary action to prevent it from taking place while I was witness and hopefully ever again. The energy washed over me as I took hold of the lead boy, forcefully slamming him into the tree, to which I asked, "How do you like it?" Seeing the flow of pure energy and force being wielded, the point I was trying to get across peacefully beforehand was finally understood. The boys stopped and they left. Afterwards, I went to check on the snake. Even with the fear in mind of it still being able to attack me after the beating, it was going to be incredibly frightened and in excruciating pain. But there was no chance I could walk away without checking, at least. As I approached, the snake lay motionless atop a mass of gravel and branches. Its head caved in some areas, rips and tears lining its body. I took it up and held it. But I didn't feel sad as I would have assumed. I felt strength from the snake, knowing I did what I could for it, and that in the end, it was able to pass with some higher form of comfort. And that stuck with me ever since that day. Even back then, I understood that I was mad at the simple fact of wrongdoing. I wasn't just mad at the kid. Everyone has their own path to walk, regardless of how we feel about it. And by him acting in that manner, it allowed my energy and presence to come forth and be the balance that was needed. So if it's that simple for a child to do this with no cognitive process, but simply responding and reacting off what is felt authentically, not by influence, then how come we consistently turned a blind eye to all the wrongdoings in our world, knowing how wrong things are? Why? I don't know about you, but I'm tired of living in fear. This is not the system we thought of when it was conceived. So why are we allowing it to continue? Because this is how we've been raised, unknowingly and unconsciously. I use the term unconscious to describe a lack of awareness and acknowledgement toward not only how you uphold yourself, but as the person you choose to be, but also acknowledgement towards the systems in place, how it treats you, your brethren, and the planet we know as our home. A conscious person is self-aware, as well as having open awareness. They hold a strong, independent mind and perspective, and are not easily corrupted by mass emulation or induction. Through the power of will and intention, they are able to harness their unique self and tap into the flowing universal currents to which we are all connected. Unconscious beings are unwilling, unaware, and in essence, incapable of developing the change needed until they discover the power to do it themselves. They fall into the masses and become herded in the direction chosen for them by false shepherds, not by guides or universal forces. Because of this and the methods that are used through this process, excuse me, the unconscious are programmed and brainwashed into believing they have no power, are totally helpless, and are completely governed by malevolent, self-worshipping entities. Bred and conditioned for docility and compliance before we even get the opportunity to make a choice for ourselves within the astonishingly minimal range of choice that we're given. This is why we have more questions than answers. This is also why it's so important that we become more conscious and authentic in our awareness in order to make these changes. But there's no set blueprint for this. In fact, this will be the first time it will be done within our given reign of the world. So expect some failures at first. But we have to stop letting false powers lead the way for us and push us down a path they created and will force others onto. We must learn to lead our own way. And through this journey, we will discover those who are meant to walk along with us. We need to do this together, not one individual leading us all, but instead all of us guiding each other. And in order to achieve this, I think we need to reassess and redefine our meaning of leadership. That's the end of chapter 1. So hopefully I didn't just waste all that time and the camera cut out and I've just been reading with nobody watching because I thought the camera was, sometimes that happens. Sometimes when you shift over to a different tab or a different thing, the camera cuts out. I'm going to watch it back. And if I cut out on it, I apologize to everybody and I'll do a whole separate recording and I'll just read some chapters and I'll make up for it, I swear. But what just happened, if you didn't catch it or if you're just tuning in, just read the first chapter of my book. I hope everybody who did tune in, if it came through, enjoyed it. If it didn't come through, I'll re-record it and we'll do a pre-recording and we'll run the pre-recording and that way it'll come through. So anyways, that was it. That was the first chapter. I remember writing this book. God, I remember the states, the different mind states, the different points of energetic growth that I was going through at the time. Like, oh my goodness, it was chaos. Like, it was just chaos. And the best thing about chaos is it gives us the opportunity to embody the order, because you cannot have chaos without order being present. Order has to be somewhere for chaos to be present. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. So having an awareness that there's chaos around you and not identifying, not embodying the chaos, it gives us an opportunity to then embody the necessary and inevitable order that is present with the chaos. So that's what I found I was doing by writing this book. I'm sorry, my throat is so raspy today. When I was writing this, there was so much lack of faith, lack of identity. I didn't know where I was going and what I was even doing in the present moments at the time. But I started to find there were things being shown and things being given to me that were opportunities that I could have missed out on. So it was at the same time period when I was just getting off of learning my first few levels of Reiki. I was just starting to find people like David Piltz and my Ninjutsu instructors, and I was just engaging with the opportunities of development that were going to help lead me forward that I could have missed out on because I could have been focused on the chaos. I could have been focused on the confusion and lost sight of what was being presented to me. So because those had been engaged, those processes and those opportunities had been embraced at the time, this was another outlet for that, to provide that order, because there was so much going on with how much I was absorbing on a spiritual level, on a physical level, while working as a manager in the service industry, in bars and restaurants at the time, like just not good energetic environments work wise to be in, to be pouring myself into like that. So I needed an outlet to stabilize all of this frequency, all of this energy. And it turned out to be this book. And I remember when I first wrote it, I had it done, like the format, all the chapters, all the everything I wanted to do, I had it done in a matter of months. Like, it didn't take me that long. I want to say about 10, 11, 10 chapters with a foreword was 3 months of writing at work. I was at work doing this. So I'd be setting up the line, I'd be running the show like by myself during the day, and then helping out with whatever stuff I needed to help out with for the other employees that were there. And then any downtime that I had, I would run into the office and I'd pull up this document and I'd just start writing, and I'd just go. So any moment that I really felt to pour this energy into, I just took and I jumped on it. It wasn't in the format that it's in now. It was very much so, in the stage of, excuse me, I'm burping. It was very much so in the stage of diamond in the rough. It needed to be refined. It needed to be proofread. The grammar was all over the place. There were spelling errors. There were concepts that, as I was writing them, made so much sense to me. As I reread what I wrote, I realized I had trailed off on a tangent far too much, and the point I was trying to get across was being convoluted. So I said, I gotta pull this back. I gotta tighten it up. Didn't stop me from sharing it. I printed that thing off and I was just handing that shit out like candy. Because I knew the energy. I knew what it was doing for me. So I knew if I could just pour that energy into the words, whoever was reading it would receive that same, right? So I stayed on that process with it for a while. And luckily, that was the response I was getting from a lot of people. But at the time, too, I didn't have as well as a refined ability to articulate certain things in a way without confusing people, is maybe a great way to put it. I would use words that I knew were the right words and they were great for me. And sometimes it was maybe the person just reading it, or the way that I had formatted it and dictated it in the sentence. It went over some people's heads. It went over a majority of people's heads when I was first giving it to them. I remember there was one person I gave it to, and she said she stopped reading it because she literally, the words that were coming, she couldn't understand them. Now, part of it, yes, was her own vocabulary, and I understand that. As a writer, we have to understand our audience. If I'm looking to make this an every person's book, then the first every person that I give it to that tells me I couldn't read past this point, I have to understand that. I have to respond to that. That's part of the alchemy of what we're doing when we're writing something. There is so much magic. And this is again why spelling is called spelling. We're casting spells. The written word, the way it's dictated, the grammar effects to it, all of this is so important. It's so powerful. Learning the response on that without being judgmental, without taking, critique to it. Because I'll be honest, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, when I first wrote it and I finished it, finished how I wanted it to be 8 years ago. But I first wrote, no, 10 years ago was wrong. 8 years. We're just sticking with 8. I'm getting confused now. When I first wrote it and I was giving it to some people, like even my dad, I just wanted my dad to read it. And he was giving really good advice. But at the time, I was so sensitive. I'm like, well, I meant this by, and he goes, I know what you meant, man. And I'm just telling you that it doesn't make sense. I understand what you're saying because he's my dad. He gets what I'm trying to say. But he was very clearly just trying to be a critique. He was trying to give me a critique about it, an honest, open, constructive criticism. And I'm just getting all huffy puffy and sensitive about it. Don't get me wrong. I trained as an actor. A whole lot of artists do this, and writers are the fucking worst for it because of how much magic and how much energy and transmutation they're putting into that script, into that book, into whatever it is they're writing, right? There's so much energy and magic that goes into it. I now understand the alchemy beyond just that initial everything I'm pouring into it, and now saying, here's an outside perspective, another element that I could bring into this formula. Does it work? Maybe. If it does, great. I have something better than what I had beforehand. If it doesn't work, okay. I still have everything that I poured into it before that element came in. So it'll fizzle out. Whatever doesn't alchemize, whatever doesn't fit in that frequency will find its way out of that frequency. It can't experience that. So that this new serenity and place of just acceptance with it, of I'm going to pour everything that I need to into it, and I'm going to love it to such a degree that I'm so open to taking constructive criticism, because it could make it into something more than I could have ever expected it to be. That's a universe speaking through other people. Now, don't get me wrong, there's also going to be some instances of some people just talking crap and thinking that they know something, when in some instance they may not actually know what they're talking about. And those are the points that we're just discussing. Oh, so there's an element that got thrown in there. Oh, well, it doesn't really fit. Cool. It'll find its way out. It literally will. I don't have to worry about sifting it. I don't gotta, well, add some extra this and drown it out. No, it will make its way out. Or the mixture itself, everything that I poured into it beforehand, that frequency will be so pure in its own frequency that it will literally just dissolve anything that's not a part of it. You throw it in there, cool. It won't have an effect unless it's a multiplier effect. This is a beautiful state to be able to be in when we're in such acceptance and such honing of ourselves that we can take that level of constructive criticism as alchemy, points of new formulas to play with, basically. And to be honest, even going back to the beginning of this chat, I find that that's linked to a lot of the work that we do integrating our inner child, finding those points of not just trauma that we have to heal with our inner child, but these incredible points of empowerment. Where can I find that? When I would go and play make-believe and be that superhero, how can I bring that same energy I felt when I was that child into the now? Because it all exists. That energy hasn't gone anywhere. That state of mind, that presence hasn't gone anywhere. We're in the now. So bring it all into the now through the quantum. It exists through us all simultaneously and instantaneously. All we have to do is make that belief structure open so that the energy in motion, the emotion surges, and it inevitably formulates into the frequency of reality of that experience. Inevitably. It's a byproduct. You cannot not have it happen. Yeah. Say that again backwards. Yeah. Oh, well, we're getting to the top of the hour here, folks. This was another wonderful chat. I hope I'm gonna have to watch this back, because I got this little worry in the back of my head that when I opened up the PDF file to read the damn chapter, the camera cut off. And even if the camera cut off, I'm hoping the microphone stayed on. I'll watch it back. I'll let you guys know. If I got to do another recording of it, we'll do another recording of it. That's just fine. Quickly check the comments again. Nope, nobody new. That's okay. Hey, you guys are busy. I get it. I'm just happy that you're tuning in. You don't have to comment if you don't want to, but know that when you do, it's important. I love you. Come check me out on my website. If you get some time, I would love to see you guys book some sessions coming up. I love to do one-on-ones. I love to do, you can even book what I'm wanting to do is set up a mentorship program. So mentorship is a little bit different than coaching. Coaching is that motivational, I'm holding you accountable so you learn to hold yourself accountable thing, right? That coach, you think about personal trainers, get up, come on, do it. You don't want to eat that. It's going to make you feel fat. You need to get, you know what I'm talking about? They hold you accountable so that you learn to hold yourself accountable. I can do that. It's not my preference. I'm going to be honest. My preference is much more in mentorship. I'm available for outreach. We will set up actual sessions where I will be a coach. We'll do coaching, but it's not me being the coach in those sessions, in the teaching sessions. There will be coaching, there will be exchange, there will be guidance, all of that. Beyond that, what a mentor offers is that unconditional support where when things get tough, you can pick up the phone. But where a coach is always going to answer that call and call you right back and wake you up at 6:30 in the morning, a mentor may not always be available for that phone call. But a mentor is going to provide the space when you do have that phone call and when you do have those scheduled sessions to bring this awareness into the space that even just reaching out, whether you get in touch with the mentor or not, is going to start the process in your field of awareness of answering and alleviating whatever that question or whatever that trouble was that caused the reach out. It's so interesting because when I was first introduced to that in my early stages of being a student, there were times where I would get upset and I'd be like, you don't understand. I need someone right now so bad. Everything's going in this manner and I need answers. I need some clarity. And when I would reach out in those absolutely chaotic moments where I didn't have anything to offer, I didn't have anything to exchange, I was just looking to take, and puke out whatever was bothering me, basically. I wouldn't get answers from my mentors. They wouldn't pick up the phone. And whether it was intentional or just circumstantial and universe was taking care of it because of the frequency. What I found in those moments is when I calmed myself and I just stepped into that presence, that big open space that me and my mentors created for us to work in, to do all of that exchange. We create that space because that energy will exist there always. So as long as I'm able to step into that space, whether the mentor is physically present or not, everything that we do together is contained in that space. So they're there and I'm able to receive from that exchange. And I would get answers. I would get the clarity I was looking for by simply opening up, calming myself, and stepping into that space. And I love engaging in that process with new students and new practitioners and new people who are learning how to expand, because the most important thing to me about that is it really engages how to become your own master, your own teacher. You don't ever invalidate the connection with your mentor, but it eventually elevates where you go from just being the student teacher to actually being a peer alongside your mentors, because you were able to take that space so wholly within yourself. You became the master. You didn't have to go anywhere else anymore. Now you're able to engage in exchange with your mentors on a level where you're a peer. You're playing in the same field. You're not an audience member. You're not a student in a lecture anymore. It's a completely different ballgame. So I love setting that up. Anyone who's interested, please get in touch. I would love to hear from you. And that being said, we are officially at the top of the hour. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We're going to see you guys next week. I may be in Calgary next week. Hopefully, that's my plan. If not by next week, it will be this month. Absolutely guaranteed. Because my mom's birthday is also coming up this month in June. So I'll either be there for the end of the month for her birthday, or I'm going to be there in the next couple weeks and I'm going to see her. Optimistically, maybe I'll be there for both. Who knows? Regardless, I will see you guys next week. Stay frosty, stay live.